Okay, now I tried to do a video yesterday, ended up with a 14-minute video. I've never made a cooking video before, and so I had a lot of extra stuff in there. So I am starting all over and doing it again, this time a bit more organised. One thing that I had done yesterday was showed how I made the ogiri isi. It's quite easy actually, but as I've already started it, all I'm going to do is explain how I did it. You take the white sesame seeds, which I got from eBay, and put them in the bottom of a small bowl. Pour water over them. Obviously I covered them quite well, and I took a fork and pushed them down into the water and cleaned off the edges. And then I have this silicone wrap top, which is very, very tight. It's like a drum, it's so tight. That keeps everything, the air out, and you leave it for 9 days. It ferments. After it's fermented, you rinse it, and you only need one banana leaf. I had never seen a banana leaf and ordered 12. But you just put them in strips about the width of half the banana leaf, and they'll be about that wide. Put a spoonful of the sesame seeds in the middle, wrap it up, and put them in a pan in the oven to roast. Now, when that was done, I still hadn't received the pounded yam. We're having postal action. So I decided to, in order to make certain that they didn't spoil, I decided to, after they were roasted, take them out and put them back in the oven just a couple of minutes, just enough to dry. So I'll have to cook these for an extra period of time because they're not as moist as they should have been. So I have boiled the cocoyam and put it in the food processor to make it nice and smooth, and I will then add all of those things together. So I'm going to pause it, get things organised for the next step, and then we'll be back. Okay, now water's boiling, so I'm going to take the seeds, because they're dry. I'll put them in the boiling water so that they can boil for a while, and I will also put the dry bitter leaf in to boil for a while, because those things are dried. The ogiri isi wasn't supposed to be so dry, but I would have still needed to boil the bitter leaf because it is dry, so it needs extra time to cook. If you had fresh, all of that could just go in at once. You're not going to see much of me here in the kitchen because I had to arrange the laptop so it would focus on the stove, on the cooker. So, this is my little cooking space, and that's why everything is so tight, is because they had to take space for the wheelchair room. But there you are. Okay, now the seeds and bitter leaf have done simmering, and I have I'm trying to make a tiny soup today. So I have 2 gobs of spinach, frozen spinach, and I cut up the chicken that I cooked in yesterday's video. I cooked 2 fillets because that's how they come in a pack, but I only needed 1, so I saved the other for another time, and today is another time. Then I did not put in the fish stock yet. I waited for that. The fish stock that I have is of course quite salty, and hadn't realised until yesterday, when I was asking if I'd forgotten any ingredients. Jenny told me fish stock. I just happened to have some, but I'd already bought the Maggi and soy sauces, which are regular, they're not low sodium. So that was a bit salty. I'm putting in all of those things. Like that. And then I'll put in palm oil. I had been cooking it, just trying to squeeze blobs of it out of the bottle. I hadn't ever used palm oil before in my cooking, naturally, it's not a British thing, but I began to realise yesterday that I was probably doing it wrong, because it just didn't make sense to me suddenly that I was trying to push out globs of hardened oil. So I have warmed it up today, and that worked much better. I'm probably doing it correctly for once. So I'll let this cool off. And I will also add the taro, which I boiled until it was soft, and then put through the food processor, pulsing it first so that it doesn't overheat the motor, and then giving it a good spin round. Now, just put it in with everything else. I have quite a nice little cooking space, and even though I had to give up so much storage space, it's better because I'm able to arrange everything in such a way that I can reach it. Like I filmed a little piece of what my cooker arrangement is, which I have everything right where I can reach it, which is handy. So I was quite pleased when they did this. You have to turn it on, woman. I was doing that all day yesterday, trying to make things work without turning them on. It was ridiculous. And all of that faffing about is why I had such a long video yesterday. But never mind. Today is much more organised. So now I'll let that simmer for a bit, get all the flavours mixed in. I might have put in a bit too much oil, not sure. Well, trial and error. Anyway, I will pause until the next step. Okay, soup is now done, so I'm going to do the fufu now. Got the water boiling, and I'm going to put flour in there and do my best to get it stirred up. I love this silicone whisk because it doesn't scratch my hands, and the dough, the fufu, doesn't stick to it. So that's always nice. Always a plus. I've been trying to figure out how to make a very tiny fufu, and I just don't think there's a way to do it. At least not one that I've found. So maybe, Jenny, if you could, maybe you'll give me something that can do. But of course, if you're only accustomed to cooking for a family, then you might not. But I'm quite certain that I will figure it out eventually. So once it's got just enough of the flour in it, and this is the powdered yam that I was waiting for so long. I wasn't able to get the best recommended brand that's supposedly the most authentic in flavour, because the seller on eBay, their reviews were diabolical. So I just thought, no, I won't go there. But this one, I don't, as I have no reference, to me it tastes good. So I just keep stirring it until it thickens quite nicely. And of course, as I'm stirring it, it keeps getting thicker. And I don't know, I might have made it a little too wet this time. Usually I make it too dry, so this time I tried using a bit less of the flour, but I might have made it just too wet. That's all right. It's all swings and roundabouts. It's all trial and error, and we get there in the end. So let's get. Actually, I wonder if I could just take a spoon and stir that in, if that might help. So I'll pause this. Okay, so a couple of times I have actually accidentally touched the stop button instead of the pause button. Never mind. So I have finished all of the food and have napkins. So let's see how this is going to go. The fufu probably still could cool a bit. It's still a little bit sticky. I think I did make it just a bit too wet this time. It's not like it usually is. It's really sticky on my hands this time, but never mind. I'm hardly going to get it perfect every time when it's not really something I'm used to cooking. It's actually even better today than it was yesterday. And it's very interesting how the fufu just kind of adds a little something to it. I can see why you have that. Oh, that's going to be too big of a bite for my mouth, isn't it? Well, let's see. It takes a bit of time to simmer, it takes a bit of time to get it just right, but it is quite worth the effort, I must say. Yes, the fufu is a bit too wet. I thought I'd try to make it not as dry, because I thought maybe I was making it too dry. You balance it out, to keep trying. and that is probably the best soup I've done yet. Sorry, I'm not a finger licker. I'm just not a finger licker. But I suppose it's what you grow up with, isn't it? But it's really quite lovely, and I must say, Jenny, that I'm quite enjoying learning how to make these different dishes, and at the end of the day, they really aren't that difficult to do. So far, I know I haven't cooked much, only a couple of dishes, but so far what I have tried has been simple, healthy, and I don't know if it's the fufu or the meat, but I find after a few bites it's quite filling. Mind, I don't eat very regularly. I've been known to go a couple of weeks without actual food because my stomach just doesn't. So that's why it's so far apart between videos, but I am enjoying them, and I'm finding African sellers who have these things, sometimes it takes a bit of time to get to them with action going on, but I quite like. I gave the bitter leaf much more time to simmer, and the seeds as well. Now that I have all of the ingredients, I can actually order a banana leaf, and when the ogiri isi that I have going now is done, I can show how it gets wrapped up, because this time I know how many leaves I'll need and what to do. I threw away so many leaves, and they even gave me extra leaves. I don't know why, but they had a note on the invoice saying extra leaves. Maybe they needed to get rid of some, but I ended up with a bin bag full of leaves. But now I know. I'd never seen a banana leaf before. It's just not a British thing. But, and I like having my matching head wrap and clothing. I have all of these different wraps. About 12 years ago, I asked a friend of mine who is Congolese. There are so many African communities in this area, and I love the way the husband and wife will wear these matching clothes like you and Ben have done, and they have different styles of head wraps. So, but this is close to what English women used to wear. So I asked her how she tied it, and she showed me. It's so dead easy. I couldn't believe it. I thought it would be this complicated thing. She showed me once, I did it again, and that was it. And I love them because they keep my hair out of falling into the food and everything. But this has been a lot of fun. So I'll now put this video together, and hopefully it will be much better than yesterday's was. Thanks, Jenny.